Hello there, students. This is Professor Nelson, looking dark and mysterious in low light, here at the Villa Nisonus. And we're going to do Chapter 4 today in second declension neuter nouns and adjectives, the present tense of the verb to be, or sum, and talk a little bit about predicate nominatives and substantives. So there's a lot of information to cover. And I'm going to disappear from the screen here in an effort to and make sure that I stay off of the text, because there's a lot of text-rich slides. So I'll see if I can return, if I can figure out how to make this program make me return at the end, and if not, then you'll just hear me. Second declension neuter nouns are second declension because they have an I in the genitive singular, just like amicus, amici. Neuter second declension, like donum, doni, has an I in the genitive singular, which makes it second declension. I've highlighted the areas in which second declension neuters are different. That's in the nominatives and in the accusative plural. Something you'll notice about neuter nouns in general, and this applies across all the declensions, is that neuter nouns have the same form in both their nominative and their accusative. So you notice in the singular it's donum, donum, and in the plural it's dona, dona. So the nominatives and the accusatives are the same. Also, something that you'll find throughout the declensions is that in the plural ending for neuters in plural nominatives and plural accusatives is a. So it's one of the very few things that applies ubiquitously, but at least it's nice to know. So anyway, you're going to meet a series of second declension neuter nouns, and as of now, they will end in um in the nominative singular, and then have an I in the genitive singular. This means that we can also have a full spread of us, or three termination adjectives. Three termination because there's an ending or a termination for each of the genders, masculine and feminine and neuter. Three termination adjectives like this decline in second declension for masculine and in neuter, and they decline in first declension for feminines. So adjectives that have us, in the vocabulary will all decline like this. This is the paradigm for those kind of adjectives. It's the pattern against which you can fit the others. And so it would be very good to learn this, because you're going to have to use it over and over and over again. And the more you can recognize the endings for these adjectives and for the nouns that also have these declensions, the less you have to look things up in a book, or the less you have to guess on what a noun is or an adjective is doing in a sentence. At the beginning, the sentences are very, very simple, so it's easy enough to kind of guess. But within a few chapters, it's going to get much more difficult, because we'll get some more complicated language and other declensions, and in a few more it'll be virtually impossible. So don't start by just trying to intuit the meaning of a sentence. Intuition is wonderful, and it really is what we use to kind of fill in the gaps in our knowledge. But if all you have is intuition, you don't get very far in a language. So learn this chart well, and commit it to memory, and you'll be a lot better off. One of the reasons why you need to learn the patterns as well as what they mean is because we've already entered an area in which you can have a masculine noun that belongs to one declension and a masculine adjective that modifies it that comes from another declension. Nouns and adjectives don't change their declensions. They They just follow their patterns to let you know which case and number they are. So, but it doesn't mean that they match each other in spelling. You can see nauta magnus. This is big sailor, great sailor. But the point of this is that nauta ends in an A for the nominative singular, and magnus ends in US for the nominative singular. Both of them are masculines, and magnus modify is nauta, but it doesn't look the same in spelling. So if you can look down the declension here, you'll see that there's only two places down here in the dative and the ablative plural where the terminations match in spelling. All the rest are different. And yet, these two words go together and would modify each other in a sentence. The other verb that appears in this particular chapter is the verb to be, and of course this is one of the most important verbs that there is in the language. It's difficult to get by in a language without knowing the verb to be, and the verb to be is almost always irregular. And that's true in Latin here as well. So it's not one you can anticipate by a pattern. There's not a paradigm for it. The paradigm for to be is to be. So you have to learn it, memorize it, and because these spellings, this form of the verb appears in many other verb forms, it's well worth doing. So sum est, sumus estis sunt, is the present tense for I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, y'all are, and they are. The verb to be is what's called a linking verb. That is, it connects the subject of a sentence to its predicate, but because it's a linking verb, it's the equivalent of kind of a grammatical equivalent sign, an equal sign. That is, the things that occur on both sides of the verb are of the same grammatical category. And in this case, it's case. So there are other verbs that are like this. The verb to seem, the verb appears. Those are sub cousins of the verb to be. And those are linking verbs as well. But when you have a linking verb like to be, it means that the subject nominative, the subject of the verb, is equated with something on the other side of the verb, or the predicate. And because they're given an equivalence, that predicate has to be nominative. That's why it's called a predicate nominative. Now, an example would be, I've got here like as Mark is a professor. Mark is the subject, and as the subject would have to be in Latin nominative. But professor is also nominative because it's what the subject is. You can't make it into a different case because it is actually just another name for what the subject is. So here, like Marcus est doctor, Mark is a professor, is an example where the linking verb links the subject, noun, to another equivalent noun. Mark is a professor. In the second here, Romani sunt magni, the Romans are great. Great is nominative because that's what the Romans are. And but it's an adjective, and it's an example where you have a subject linked to a predicate nominative that's a descriptor or an adjective. In other cases, with other verbs, an object of the verb is going to be an accusative. But with a linking verb, such as to be, to seem, or appears, nominatives will be on both sides of the verb. Another concept that you're introduced to here is the concept of substantives. And substantives is when an adjective is used as a noun. it's called a substantive because it isn't just a descriptor. There's actually a nominalization and a substance that it represents. We use these all the time, and I've given you some examples here, like the rich, the meek, the tall, whites, Canadians, optimists, pessimists, Republicans, Democrats. All of those are substantives. They're all made from adjectives, words that are meant to describe nouns but become nouns when they're used to represent people. In Latin, if an adjective is used to represent something, either men, women, or things, it has to have a case, and it has to have an ending. So here you can see we have like awari. Awarus means greedy. Awari is nominative plural masculine, so those have to be greedy men, whereas awarai is feminine nominative plural, and it has to be like greedy women. Substantives often occur with neuters, neuter singulars, and neuter plurals, meaning things. So like bella can be a beautiful woman if it was feminine nominative singular in the a sentence, or it could be beautiful things, or if it was neuter nominative plural. Another example in the singular is bonum, which just means a good thing. So really, in some ways, we shouldn't, if at companies that give out bonuses, they really shouldn't give out a bonus, because a bonus would be a good man. So it would be as if you did a good job and they gave you somebody. And hopefully he was good. But it would be better to have a bonum. You'd get a good thing instead of a good man. Although I hear a good man is hard to find. All right, everybody. Let's see if I can bring myself back here now. There I am. All right. It's getting late here, so I hope you're getting your Latin done in good time, and I look forward to seeing your translations coming up and working with you in the next weeks. Be sure that if you have questions, be sure that you post those in the forum appropriately, and I can help you out there and probably answer other people's questions as well. And if you want to answer a question, if you know the answer, then by all means climb in there and answer it in the thread, because you may get to it before I do, which means that somebody else gets help in better time. Otherwise, I'll see your homework and be commenting on that, and looking forward to seeing you in the next chapter. All right. Good night, at least for now, and good work to you.